The autumn night is crisp and cool, and you're grateful to be embraced by the heat of your warm and safe home. The days continue to get shorter as the air continues to become colder. But autumn is beautiful in its own whimsical way. The unnerving stories of horror and fear that are so common this time of year feel so distant and unreal while you're tucked safely in your home. There's that word again, safe. You are safe, right? As you continue to settle in, an unexpected sound fills the house. A knock? You weren't expecting anyone. Even your dog seems startled and unsure. Slowly, you get up, trying to shake off the feelings of dread as you walk toward the door. All the while, the knocking continues in increased fervency. With a deep breath, you look out the peephole. Your entire body, mind, and soul are telling you to get away. But you think to yourself, stop being so silly. It's just someone knocking at the door. The sight that greets you is unexpected. It's a bunch of kids. That's not quite right. They're more like teenagers. And you think that's odd, but now you're more annoyed than scared. These kids have the audacity to try and play a prank on you. But as you continue to look closer through, something is just not right. That hair on the back of your neck feeling, it hasn't dissipated. If anything, it's gotten more intense. You want to run away, but something pulls you toward the door, compelling you to want to open it. These kids all have dark hoodies on, and something just doesn't seem right. You can't put your finger on it, though. If you listen through the door, you can hear the leader, the oldest-looking one speaking, and his voice is just off. The inflection is not what you were expecting, nor were the words. They seem to belong to a different time. Suddenly, as if he knows you're looking, his gaze goes straight toward the peephole, straight towards you. Then you see it, the thing that kicks you out of the spell and sends you stepping backwards, securely locking the door. His eyes, they were completely black. I'm Bree.
And I'm Christiana.
Lock your doors and stay away because
you're about to hear something strange.
Welcome to episode 2, Black-Eyed Kids. What do you know about this urban legend, Black-Eyed Kids or Black-Eyed Children?
So I've heard of it, and I actually shout out to the Morbid podcast, Ash and Elena. You guys are great. They did an episode on it that I listened to, but I don't remember a whole lot. I know it's kids, and they are wicked creepy, and they have black eyes. And they try to get in your house, and you should not let them in your house, or bad things will happen.
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate synopsis.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that creeps into my brain, and when I'm home alone at night, it's like...
You don't want to hear knocking on your door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to just shout out a couple of the different sources for this right away. So, good old Wikipedia. And then a lot of the stuff I pulled from this was from YouTube. So there was a PBS video, Don't Let Them In, The Urban Legend of Black-Eyed Children. Another one called Black-Eyed Children, Urban Legend Storytime. Something Scary from Snarled, Are Black-Eyed Children Real? And then one called What Lurks Beneath.
Okay.
So I did a lot of YouTubing.
Yes.
Also, like Christiana said, a lot of podcasts have covered this, but the specific ones that I think of are, as always, Believing the Bizarre, because they do a wonderful job of everything. Mm-hmm. And have you heard of any of Jim Harold's podcasts, like the Paranormal Podcast or A Campfire?
I feel like I've heard The Campfire.
It's where people call in and give, like, listener stories.
Ooh.
But he does interviews with people in the paranormal realm, and that was the Paranormal Podcast had an episode about it.
Okay.
Urban legend, right? Falls into that realm of, like, not quite folklore yet, but...
Modern myth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's start with a couple of stories that are the ones that are most talked about or repeated. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that I knew all these stories until I started reading them.
Okay.
After we do that, we'll talk about what they might be, right?
Sure.
The first story comes from the PBS video, Don't Let Them In, The Urban Legend of Black-Eyed Children. This is the quote-unquote original Black-Eyed Kids encounter, and it was featured on Monsters and Mysteries in America. This is probably how I heard about this.
Okay.
Like, I remember watching that show as a kid.
Okay.
Let's kind of hop into this original story. So this is the experience of Brian Bethel, and it takes place in Texas in 1996. So quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
He was sitting outside a movie theater in his car and was approached by two boys who he said were approximately 8 and 13, and they were wearing hoodies. They asked for a ride to their mother's house so they could get money to see the Mortal Kombat movie.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about here. Yeah.
One of the things that he noted, or the video noted, is that these boys didn't look anything alike. Doesn't mean they're not siblings, though.
Yeah.
Brian reported an unnatural sense of dread, and he made a comment like, the movie already started. Like, why do you need me to drive you to your parents to get money for a movie?
For a movie that's already playing. Huh.
Yeah. And they were saying things to him like, we're just kids, and we don't have a gun or anything.
Oh, don't... Okay, no,
No comment?
No. No.
Just like, yeah. Kids and teenagers do say weird things, though.
They do, to be fair.
And he described their voices as mechanical and rehearsed.
So, like, we are just kids.
Yeah, like like a Furby talking. Oh my goodness, that's the scariest.
Cursed Furby.
A Furby organ is the scariest headcanon in the world.
A Furby organ?
Do you not know about this?
No.
Viv has said for Alistair for Hasman Hotel that he has a Furby organ.
Oh, that is heinous. He would.
Didn't I show you the picture of it?
I don't think so.
Well, like not the picture she drew. Hold on, let me find it. This is like the most cursed thing on my phone.
Oh God.
That's what I think of when I think of Furbies. That's like the most horrific thing I have heard in my life.
Yeah. He would.
Just because it would just because it would mess with people.
Yes. Watch Hasbin Hotel if you don't know what we're talking about.
Furbies, oh my God. Those are one of the scariest things ever created.
Yes.
Back to the story. What really kind of the oh my goodness moment for Brian was he saw the boy's eyes and he started to pull away because, you know, they were black. Like the eyes were just black.
Like no
people.
No sclera or anything. Okay.
At this point, the boys are like knocking on the window.
No.
And are like, we need to be invited inside.
No.
And he just pieced on out. Like he like pulled away and they vanished.
Yeah. Like he saw them like vanish, or he just pulled away and didn't see them again?
I think I'd have to re-listen to the YouTube.
Okay.
But what I think happened was like he looked back and they were just
gone. Okay.
Any thoughts on that story before we go to the next one?
They sound like vampires. Like they have to be invited in?
We'll get to that.
Ooh, okay.
The next story comes from Black Eyed Children, Urban Legend Storytime, Something Scary by Snarled. Alright, so this encounter came from online.
Okay.
They didn't specify if it was like a blog or Reddit or what have you. It's just online.
Okay.
This is also a very common one that you'll hear people talk about.
Okay.
So there was a woman and her husband, and they were living in like Podunk Nowhere, Vermont. That's my words, Podunk Nowhere.
Yeah.
So at 2 a.m. on a snowy morning, they are woken up by a knock at the door. A young boy and a girl were there, but they weren't dressed for the weather, and they were looking down at the ground and avoiding eye contact. So these people, who have obviously never seen a horror movie, decide to engage with these children.
No.
And ask them, hey, where are your parents?
I mean...
Yeah.
Like, I get that, especially at 2 a.m. if two little kids show up on your doorstep. It's like,
in the snow,
what?
like...
Yeah. But also...
Yeah. So these creepy kids respond with, can we come in? They'll be here soon.
No.
And for some reason, they let them in.
Good.
I'm going to say something I'm going to say a lot in this episode. I would have called the police.
Yes.
So the woman decides to make them hot chocolate. And the husband decides he's just going to chill with these strange children and, like, try and get the tea from them.
And did this have a date to it?
No.
Okay. Because I'm thinking, too, I would be hesitant to give them any kind of food. But this is more like a modern day, I think, thought than it was.
Yeah.
Like, if this was, like, somewhere in, like, the 70s, 80s, it probably wouldn't have been thought about as much. But,
and, like, a knock on the door in the 70s wouldn't have been...
a huge thing. It would have, yeah.
But yeah, he's like, I'm going to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the cat started acting weird and was like, I am not getting anywhere near here. It was growling.
Yeah.
And the husband starts to feel dizzy.
Mm.
The woman finally re-enters the story and sees the eyes. The kids then ask if they can use the restroom, and they just, like, piece on out to the restroom. Presumably they know where it is.
Oh.
The woman then asks her husband, like, did you see their eyes? And apparently his nose just starts bleeding. Meanwhile, the power gets cut out.
Ooh!
The children are just kind of like chilling in the hallway, like they're pretending to be the twins in The Shining.
Oh.
And then they say something very creepy. Our parents are here.
Good. Get them out.
The children then walk out the door with no concern for the electricity bill. Like, they leave it wide open in the middle of the winter, right?
Raised in a barn? Gross.
And the woman then reports to see 2 tall men in black standing at the edge of the driveway and drove away. Didn't say what kind of car it was, and the power came on a short while later.
Oh.
There's a trigger for an animal death.
Oh.
So if you don't want to hear that, go forward a couple times. 3 of their 4 cats went missing, and they came home to find one of the cats deceased in a puddle of its own blood.
Oh.
The husband continued to have nosebleeds, and according to the story, it ended up being a kind of cancer that was linked to tanning beds, which wasn't something, as far as I know, they did.
Like, yeah.
And then the woman starts to get dizzy and nosebleeds as well as other unspeakable things. It didn't say what these unspeakable things were.
Yeah, that's...
I also, what you said about, like, when this happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know where my brain went? If this would have happened nowadays,
yeah,
as some kind of, like, human trafficking thing.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like, using kids to kidnap you.
Yeah. Those kids are in the system.
Mm-hmm. That is scarier than them being paranormal, I'm going to say.
Yeah, I agree with that. 100%.
Any thoughts on that story before we go to the next one?
I feel like I maybe heard that one too, but I can't.
One.
It's a common one? Okay. But yeah, that's very strange. Like the nose bleeding and everything. It's one of those, like, I guess you can kind of explain some things away, but it's a weird story regardless.
I think the worst part is the animals dying.
Yeah, like, and I would be curious to know, like, what was found. If they took them to the vet beforehand, or if they, like, the one cat that was found dead, like, if they did, like, a necropsy on it or something, like, what they found internally.
Yeah, like, was it, like, radiation? Was it poison?
Right.
From what I understood, the other one just vanished.
Okay, so they just kind of disappeared.
Which cats do, unfortunately.
Yeah, especially if they're, like, in the middle of nowhere, Vermont.
We're also not told if they're indoor or outdoor cats.
Right.
So, like, if they're cats that never get outside, then that's really weird.
Mm-hmm.
If they're just, like, not there.
It's strange that it coincides with the 2 kids knocking on the door and being let into the house, though.
We're also presuming these are true stories.
Yeah, I mean, yes, this is true, too.
Are you ready for a Reddit encounter brought to us by YouTube?
Absolutely.
Are black-eyed children real? What lurks beneath? Reddit encounter. So this one, we get a timestamp. How nice.
Okay.
In the 2000s. And the heroine, like the person that the story is centered around, claims to have never heard of this phenomenon before. Mm-hmm. Which, to be fair, in the early 2000s probably tracks.
Yeah.
Of course, this encounter occurs on Halloween.
Naturally.
Our brave hero, who is going to be called Sarah Beth at this point, she's alone in the living room with her dog at 10 p.m. Her husband has gone to bed. So her and doggo are just chilling.
Okay.
She hears a knock at the door, and the dog is like, I'm just going to go into the back, and aggressively begin scratching at the back door. Odd, right?
Was it the back door? Was that the one that was knocked at? The front door was knocked at.
So the dog is like, I'm getting, like, the heck out of Dodge.
Yeah.
And it's, like, scratching incessantly at the back door to get out.
Okay.
And this is very abnormal behavior for this dog. Mm-hmm. So Sarah Beth opened the door and saw 2 children, a boy and a girl. So this is similar to the last one.
Oh, I think this is the one I heard, not the other one. Okay.
These kids get around.
They do.
There are some things that she kind of pointed out here.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things was that neither of these children are wearing a costume.
Okay.
It's Halloween.
Yeah. So they're not trick-or-treaters.
Yeah.
Or if they are, they're really bad ones.
They're the black-eyed kid trick-or-treaters. That would be... I would not open my door. I'd be like, nope.
They were like, we just want a Snickers bar. Be like,
yeet it out.
Throw it out the window for him. Like, you know what? I get it, but get away from my door.
It's like the Snickers commercial of, like, having a break and then they just turn to normal kids. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? Like, eat a Snickers.
Yes.
Not sponsored.
I do love Snickers, though. It's not sponsored, but...
I don't like... Snickers has caramel in it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a huge caramel fan.
Okay, that's fair.
I'll eat Snickers if there's nothing else.
Yeah.
Anyway. So anyways, neither of them are wearing a costume, and as reported in the other experiences, she just gets this feeling of dread and just something feeling off. Mm-hmm. Apparently the kids just kind of stand there.
Oh.
And so Sarah Beth is like, what do you need? The female child said she needs to call her mother and asks politely to come in.
Huh.
Sarah asked why they didn't call their mom on their cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
Although, depending when in the 2000s that question doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. If it's true, I mean, late enough into the 2000s, it was probably a fair question.
Mm-hmm.
But
like 2001, 2002.
Yeah, especially kids. Wouldn't have... I'm trying to think, like, when I was a kid in that era, I would have been way too... For me, I would have been way too young for a cell phone. Nowadays, I feel like kids have cell phones.
I think I got my first one at, like, 13.
Yeah. I was like, a senior in high school before I was able to get a cell phone. Yeah.
Mine was a little flip phone, and it had the antenna charms.
Oh! I love it.
I'm a little bit older than you, though.
That's all right. I had a Nokia. I could throw that thing against the wall and it would break the wall. I miss it.
I only got a cell phone when I did because I got lost at Knoebels the one year.
Oh, yeah.
My parents were a little afraid about that.
Yeah. Actually, now that you say that, I might have gotten one a couple years before that because that was when my parents got divorced. And they wanted me to be able to, like, contact them if needed. So it might have been, like... But it was still... I was in, like, later high school before I got a phone.
Oh, the 2000 phones, they were something.
They were. I miss them.
I know. I remember the texting phone I had, the Envy or the Razors were the flip phones.
Yeah.
I had those in high school. But I had an Envy, which is like before smartphones were a thing, folks.
Oh.
If you were listening and you were like much younger, there were texting phones with keyboards. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
And that was once my parents moved to like either an unlimited or a designated amount of texts, because I remember like 60 characters and what you were allowed to have.
Oh, jeez.
When I first got a cell phone.
Yeah.
And it was like on a flip phone, so you're like, what's that called? Like TX90 texting.
I know what you're talking about, but it's like where you have to hit multiple buttons to get to like whatever letter you want.
Yeah. And if you hit the internet by accident and you were like, no.
Yeah. You're like, I can't pay for that.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. So anyways, this kiddo was like, the cell phone battery had died.
Mm.
Which also at that time, those batteries lasted.
I feel like they did, yeah.
Yeah. At this point also, the door was only cracked. She did not open it all the way. But she reported that she cracked the door without realizing it, like she was compelled to do so.
Okay.
Sarah then asked them for the number of their mother so she could call the mother herself.
Mm-hmm.
So, pretty smart thinking.
Yeah.
In response, the girl asked if they could come inside so her brother could use the bathroom.
No.
So at this point, the girl stepped closer into the door, like she was trying to get inside. At this point, Sarah Beth saw the eyes for the first time.
Okay.
And she just was like, nope.
Yeah.
And she slams the door and locks it.
Good for her.
Supposedly, she could hear them crying and banging to get inside.
Oh.
And instead of waking her husband or calling the police, what does she do? She calls her neighbor.
Don't do that. Call the police!
Yes, neighbor, come outside and deal with these...
Sacrifice yourself to these random children.
But, like, you know what I mean?
Like, call the police. Yes.
While this whole thing is going on, the dog is super, super upset. And eventually the kids just decide to head out. So before we jump into, like, what exactly do we think these are, what do you think of the story?
I feel like, I hope people don't think I am horrible for not letting children into my house, but I would not do that.
See, our generation, I think, has less serial killers that are successful because we don't want random people in our house.
Yes. I agree to that. I 100% agree with that.
Oh, kind sir, your car shut down. You have a machete. Just come on in.
Yeah, like no. And even like I do feel bad like with children because like you brought up earlier. I feel like children in today's day and age are like disgustingly used as pawns in like all kinds of situations, human trafficking, burglary, like anything. So like.
Call the police.
Like that would be my first knee-jerk reaction is like, I will try to help you because obviously you're children and if you do need help, I want to help you, but you also are not coming in my house. So, but yeah, that's...
Oh, it's like you can't keep them safe if you're putting yourself in harm, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like...
It's like running into a burning building then the firefighters have 2 people to save.
Yeah. That you're just creating another one. Yep.
Well, what do you think these really creepy children are?
They, like... I don't know. There's so many things they could be. Like, the power cutting out and the nosebleeds starting and everything reminds me of could be, like, extraterrestrial. But, yeah, I don't... But, like, It also reminds me like something that's putting off radiation.
Could be aliens.
Yeah, that's true. Could be.
I have the song Radioactive in my head now, sorry. Aliens, what else?
I guess, like, the black eyes, like, it could be some kind of demonic-ish thing.
Children are creepy already without them.
I know, yeah.
Sorry, anyone with kids.
Well, you know what, they can be, though. Like, when kids say, like, weird things, like, they come off with the weirdest stuff, and they say it so seriously, and it's like, are you okay?
What? You're right. Parents will agree with that. So I was with my parents recently, right? Mm-hmm. And then the summer before, my niece was also down there when she was a year younger. And she comes into my room, the guest room that I use at my parents. They live in another state. And they just happened to have her for that week. Yeah. Can I sleep with you? She asked me, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then I'm like, out of curiosity, because...
Like, are you okay? Like,
yeah. I was like, what's going on?
Sure. I mean, it could be anything. Like, she could have had a nightmare. She could have heard something.
So I was like, what's going on? Because my parents had also mentioned that she wasn't sleeping in her room at their house or at her house. And she's like, sometimes I see things. There's people in the room with me.
No. Oh, my God!
Okay. And then I asked my parents about it, like, yeah, she doesn't sleep in her. I'm like, and that was like my entire childhood experience.
Oh.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, there's people in the room with me. I'm like, oh, great.
That's,
like, are they here right now? Yes. Like, in the room she was in, and I'm like, whoa.
Yikes.
Kids are creepy.
Jinkies, Batman.
Jinkies, Batman. Any other thoughts on what these creepy children could be?
Honestly, the only other thing, it doesn't explain the black eyes or, like, the other, like, strange phenomena that's supposedly happening. And I feel like depending on the time period, this is not necessarily a thing. Just freaking creepy kids. Like, just, or like, adults putting them up, like, ill-meaning adults, like, putting them up to it, like, trying to, like, rob people.
That's scarier than them being paranormal.
Yes. I think it is.
Here, little Jimmy, let's put in blackout contacts and go mess with the neighbors.
Blackout sclera contacts, yeah.
You also mentioned vampire earlier.
Yeah, oh yeah. The wanting to be invited in thing is strange.
So what exactly are they? Well, they're urban legends, so no one actually knows. Mm-hmm. Let's kind of jump into the description a little bit more specifically, and then we'll jump into, like, what some people think they might be. Mm-hmm. So the description goes as follows. They're between the ages of 6 and 16, seemingly. A lot of times they're seen in hooded clothing, but they can also be seen wearing antiquated clothing.
Okay.
So, like, clothing from another time period.
Yeah.
They speak in ways that aren't normal for kids, so, like, a different intonation, different tone, and they would use words that aren't used by, like, kids or people even.
Like any more, like, antiquated speech, maybe, kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember where I heard this story, but it was on a podcast at some point.
Okay.
And it was, like, they asked to use a telegraph instead of a phone.
Oh.
It's like, I don't have one of those, sorry.
Huh. So maybe they could be, like, spirits?
That's it. We'll come to that.
Okay.
Obviously, they get their name from their black eyes.
Sure.
And, like, I don't mean that, like their sclera is completely
like, it's blacked out, like, supernatural demons.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Except for the ones with the yellow eyes in Supernatural.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen any of those, because I haven't gotten all the way through Supernatural yet. So.
Spoiler alert. Don't listen if you haven't listened to Supernatural. They were looking for a yellow-eyed demon, because that's what killed Sam and Dean's mother and Sam's girlfriend in the pilot.
Oh, I don't think I caught that. I knew a demon killed them. I did not realize it was a yellow-eyed demon. Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's a lot of there's crossover stuff of, like, them trying to get Crowley. It's like I wasn't that person.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. Also, in most of these stories, they can't enter without permission. So, theories, right? You already hit vampires, and that's I need permission to enter, right?
Do they have reflections?
They come at night, so that might be hard to tell.
Yeah. So, like, there's a thought for vampires.
If we're taking these as true stories, I don't think the people are like, what up a mirror?
Yeah, they're not like...
I'm gonna get my compact out.
Right.
Ghosts. There's a British paranormal researcher, reporter, whose name was Lee Brickley.
Okay.
I think, in the UK. And he, like, told stories of these black-eyed kids that were more ghosty. Like,
okay.
They were, like, it was a little girl in, like, clothes that didn't fit the century.
Sure.
And would be crying and, like, asking for their mom, but they had black eyes.
Oh.
I'm trying to remember this from the top of my head. I don't somehow this was tied to like the disappearance and murder of, trigger warning, of little kids in the area.
Oh.
Some people think they're ghosts.
Yeah.
Demons.
Makes sense.
I don't know about you, but in horror movies, like, demon little kids are scarier than ghost little kids. And
Yeah.
like, I know in some different stories and encounters with demons, they like take on children visage to make
themselves look attempt to make themselves look less
threatening,
and then they just look absolutely horrifying.
So it's like, it's can you really trust a little kid ghost? They're not a demon. Who knows?
No.
And then aliens, extraterrestrials from that first story, right? Because you had like the radiation stuff. You had the Men in Black picking them up.
Yeah, the strange. Yeah,
that could be a whole topic. Men in Black. I'm a little bit afraid to do that one though.
Yeah.
Alien friends listening. Before we started this podcast, I told Christiana we're not touching aliens. And what do I do in the first episode?
Here we are.
Because aliens scare me. And then my favorite theory here is it's the Fae.
Okay.
Do you know of the story of, it's in the UK, of like the green children, where like there was a sound of bells and like the villagers found the kids and they were green.
Yeah,
but they had, like,
I think I actually found that. Like, I was looking up topics for this podcast, and I found like the green children of something.
Yeah,
and I think I put it in the list to do at some point. So there we go.
We'll go into it then. But like, so the Fae, right? So they don't seem like they're quite on the same. Yeah,
like, are they changelings? Maybe,
or they're just Fae children.
Just
but like the whole uncanny. Like they're
uncanny valley children. Yeah, that's a weird thing to say.
But there are like I do think there are some types of Fae that have the dark eyes.
Okay.
In a lot of Fae folklore, they try to appear human, but there's always something that's slightly off.
That's off with them, sure.
And I don't know about the asking to come in if that's a Fae thing or not.
I mean, I feel like you always want to be polite to the Fae, so maybe it's just like a politeness thing.
That is true from Fae folklore. Like, they're also menacing but very polite.
Yeah, like they have like a certain moral code that's
Russian roulette.
Bizarre, but
you don't want to say that. You might insult them.
Yeah, that's true.
Never mind. Your moral code makes a lot of sense.
Your moral code is great. Oh. You live your best lives.
We'll eventually do the Fae because that's something I'm interested in. That's where my brain first went, was the Fae.
That does make a lot of sense. I had not heard that theory before, but it checks with what we know of the Fae and Fae folklore.
I love Fae folklore.
Yes.
All right, so there's some psychological and other points that are less spooky. We already said about the fact that it could just be kids messing with people. Mm-hmm. It's another option. Or, very sadly, right, what if it is people trying to kidnap other people or something with human trafficking? Like,
yeah.
But more on the psychological side of things, there's just something really incredibly unsettling about children that are not innocent or they are creepy.
Yeah.
When we think of children, we think of
laughing, playing, just doing little kid things.
There's a lot of examples of this in media, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, let's think of a bunch of big horror movies, like The Omen.
Yeah. I mean, even, like, in real life, you can think of it. I'm going to take it to, like, a true crime place here, but, like, I'll touch on this in another episode, but, like, Jim Jones was, like, apparently a really weird kid. Very strange. Jeffrey Dahmer was a very strange kid. Like, putting chicken bones together on his plate.
And a lot of, it's not uncommon for someone who's going to end up hurting humans to start hurting animals as a child.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But that's true, right? So in real life. But yeah, there's so many different, like even The Exorcist, right? It's always... Yeah. Those things are always...
creepy. Like, it's just not normal.
Most of the time it's teenagers or kids being possessed, and it's just... Or the kids, the twins in The Shining.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good example.
The little kid in The Shining isn't supposed to be creepy. The main...
He kind of is. He's not supposed to be, but...
He is. Well, maybe... I think it's supposed to be unsettling, but he's not.
He's not meant to be, like...
Terrifying.
terrifying like the two twins are.
Do you know, like, they kept that actor in the dark about it... Not literally.
I was like...
About it being a horror movie.
Oh.
Unless that's just, like, hearsay.
Huh.
But, like, from what I understand, like, he didn't know it was a horror movie.
Huh.
Which is probably psychologically good for him.
Probably. I mean, I don't know. I've never watched The Shining.
Really?
So, I have not. I'm not. Shame on me, I know.
Hot take, I like Dr. Sleep better.
Okay.
The sequel.
Okay. That's the little boy when he grows up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has Ian McGregor in it.
Okay. Ooh. Our men. Ewan McGregor. Come on, show Ewan McGregor for no reason other than we love you.
Yes, we want to hear your Scottishness. Tell us how it feels to be Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Bring David Tennant with you.
Just grab all the Scottish actors. Bring
all the Scottish.
Gerard Butler while you're at it too.
Yes, bring them all. We will all fit in this tiny little apothecary.
We'll make it work. We also have the idea that like these entities and these stories took off the internet. Like it's an internet thing.
Sure.
You don't read. Maybe you do, but I haven't come across a lot of stuff of
published physical work. Mm-hmm. It's all internet myth.
If it is published, it's probably more related to like a vampire or ghost story.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, most of my sources were YouTube. There's been movies, podcasts talk about it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a comic book too.
Huh.
And the eyes being completely black makes it much harder to read and understand the emotions than it would.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we do emote a lot with our eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't see where they're looking.
Right.
Unless their head's turned.
Yeah.
You can't see like a lot of the cues that you normally get.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on the psychological points or...
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we covered it pretty solidly already.
Okay. Some of my like wrap up thoughts here are that I forgot how popular these stories were in the UK.
Huh.
They're super popular in the UK.
Which is weird because aren't most of them from
the US?
Huh.
I don't.
They're just laughing at us. They're like these peasants.
Those were the ones I found.
Okay.
And I really said this before, but I think the child element is the creepiest part.
Mm-hmm.
As I said multiple times, I would have just called the police every single time. Like, hey, there's these weird kids out front. Can you check on them?
Yes.
And this very much is like modern folklore. Like, it's an urban legend, but what is an urban legend if not modern folklore?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to see how our folklore, because it shapes and it grows with society, and it's interesting to see how that, this is like a case study in action.
Well, and it's fun because we've talked before, not necessarily in this podcast yet, but in our other podcast, about how legends and folklore can sometimes start because we're just trying to explain the world around us and we don't have another explanation for it. So like maybe there was just some bizarre stuff that was happening
in Texas in 1996.
Yeah, like with these weird kids. It could have been just kids being really strange, or I'd be very curious. The younger kids, I feel like this wouldn't make as much sense for, but like teenagers, I'd be curious to know how far back colored contacts go and how easy it was to get them in like the early aughts or like the late 90s.
I'd also say though, all of these take place at night, with the exception of the one where they came into the house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's already dark. I have blue eyes, so you're going to tell my eyes aren't black.
Mm-hmm.
If you already have dark brown eyes, and it's already really dark,
like,
and you're wearing a hood.
Yeah. And people are spooked. The people that answered the door at 2 a.m.
I would be spooked if someone was knocking at I wouldn't answer the door.
Right. No, absolutely not. But it makes you wonder, like, was there something going on that did have an explanation, even if it was very, very strange, and people were just like, oh no, this is definitely black-eyed kids. And then once you see that, like, once that first story happens, other people hear that and they go, oh, well, maybe this could be something that happened to me, and that's how it expands and rolls. And
memory is such a unreliable source, right?
Yeah.
And I do think, like, we attribute totally black eyes to negative things. Did I tell you about the nightmares that I've had with looking in the mirror?
Oh, no.
No. So
I have a thing with mirrors, man.
Mirrors creep me out, but I had this nightmare, and it still, like, makes me really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this dream, right, that I was looking in the mirror, and my eyes, this is before watching, like, Hazbin Hotel. This was after Believing the Bizarre episode. I don't remember which one it was. It was one of the cursed games.
Ooh.
And I was listening to it, and they were talking about how the Three Kings game. If you don't know what that is and you're not horribly scared, look it up. Or listen to their episode. I think that's Cursed Games Volume 3.
I believe I know what you're talking about.
But, like, there's all kinds of, like, mirror things with that.
Yeah.
I think it was Believing the Bizarre.
Be careful. Be careful, friends. We're not encouraging anyone to play these strange games.
No, I
wouldn't to make that very clear.
I wouldn't play any of them. Oh, we should talk about the elevator game sometime.
Yeah, we should definitely do an elevator game episode.
We're not doing the elevator game.
No.
No, I won't do those. But anyways, so I think it was after I watched that one, or watched with my ears when I listened to it.
Yeah.
I had a dream that I was looking in my bathroom mirror,
and
my eyes turned completely black, and I had this unnatural, like, think Alistair smile. And I was flipping out in my head because I'm like,
what am I looking at?
The first part of the dream was I found this necklace. Not this one I'm wearing, but just an old necklace. And I put it on in my dream. And it's so... Oh, I couldn't look in a mirror for like a week.
Oh, right.
But like my eyes turned completely black, and I had this like...
Ooh.
And so what did I do? I went and grabbed a hymnal and started singing hymns.
I mean...
That's pretty good for dream logic.
Yeah.
And then my eyes and face go back to normal, and then I stop, and it would start up again. And it was horrifying. And I remember, because I had started the episode and didn't finish it until I was back from the barn, and I like looked in my rearview mirror, and I'm like, no.
Yep, not going to do that. Yeah.
That was terrifying.
Yeah. Like, that's a thing that I have anyway. Like, I'm not as bad during the day, but like at night, if I have to get up and go to the bathroom or something, I don't want to look in the mirror because I have this fear that like something else is going to be looking back at me.
Or it's like, I watch horror movies and stuff, right? And it's like, or I listen to podcasts that have listener submissions.
Right.
And, it, you know, the mirror is doing something slightly different than you are, and it's like, nope.
Yeah. No mirrors.
But anyways, but back to the point, the black-eyed thing, right?
Yeah.
It's so not what we're used to seeing, that, like, that's why, like, aliens usually have, like, those big, beady black... Maybe that's why I'm afraid of gnomes.
Ugh, gnomes. Ugh. I just don't like dolls in general.
Dolls either, right? I grew up in a house full of porcelain dolls.
No.
No, I still have nightmares about... We could just have a... We could just have a phobias.
Yeah, we should. That would be fun.
That would be a fun, like, ask me anything.
Yeah.
Like an AMA of, like, what? Tell me about all your nightmares. Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because I have a lot of stress dreams and nightmares because of life.
Yeah. So, what drew you to this topic?
To be completely honest, I thought it would be a great topic for Halloween.
It is. It's a good one.
I must like scaring myself.
Yeah.
Because I generally don't get scared.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was writing the opening narrative that you guys heard, the lights in the pod office started blinking.
Whoa.
And I was like, well, I have a paragraph left. So that scared me.
Yeah.
I really love folklore.
Yeah.
And this is a very modern folklore, urban legend thing.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I knew before starting to research this that the Fae are tied into this.
Okay.
And I really, I like learning about the Fae. Like, that is one of my favorite folklores.
Okay.
And I will eventually do some episodes on the Fae, but the Fae are fascinating to me, and
it is really, really fascinating.
I love folklore.
Yeah.
I love folklore.
Did this episode change your view on the topic at all?
I wouldn't say so, because I knew all the stories that I recounted, except for the one that I made up in my brain. That was the original one, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I already knew all of them, and I've listened to a lot. I'm like one of those people that I have to pick at something, and if it makes my brain itch because it scares me, I have to know more about it.
Yes, I get that. Morbid fascination thing,
yeah.
I feel.
But I have to know what's next.
Yeah. Because I get that like that too with like certain topics. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily stuff that scares me. Sometimes yes, but like just for me, like horrible events in history, I'm like, I just have to hear more about this. I have to, and it's like, what is wrong with me? Why am I reading like this?
But
like
then
horrible account.
Go down the rabbit hole of like,
yeah, and it's like I have to know more. I can't. It's like a morbid curiosity.
Yeah, I explain it, and my brain gets itchy, so I have to
keep. Yeah.
Yeah. I never really thought as much about the psychological aspects of this, but it makes sense, right? Because it is like the whole uncanny valley thing of kids are supposed to, quote unquote, be seen as innocent and not creepy.
Yeah.
Even though they are. And it's the idea of like, I never thought about the eye contact thing either, because you can't actually tell.
Yeah, yeah. What did you find the most strange about this topic?
Just the whole concept.
Yeah.
But as I said before, the psychological thing, like, it's just, it messes with your brain.
Mm-hmm.
But it messes with your brain.
Yes, very much so.
That is it's something that shouldn't, in theory, be scary. Someone knocking at your door shouldn't be scary.
Yeah.
Kids being at your door shouldn't be scary, but
especially on, like, in the one case, like, on Halloween, like, oh, trick-or-treaters. But.
And I'm pretty sure that I listened to some kind of podcast episode around Halloween, and I was like, oh, crap.
Great.
I love Halloween.
Yes. Well, strangers, it's time for us to part ways.
Until we meet again, make sure you keep the doors closed.
We'll be back again soon with Something Strange.